Okay, do we have everything ready? I don't know, I'm running late today. It's been a busy morning. That's silent, that's silent, that's silent. I think we're good to go. Alright, then let's get this started. There it goes. Alright, hello! Shadowcat back, and today we are getting back to work on our Warhammer 40k module. Today, I'd like to try and finish up the Astartes. Which is to say, I'm not going to do everything Astartes related. What I'm planning to do is I need to get their armor made. I should probably get a bolter made, which shouldn't be hard. I mean, weapon statistics are nothing. Let's see. There's people in the chat. Blizz is in the chat. Hello, Blizz. Tux is in the chat. Hello, Tux. Good to see both of you here. Tux says, did I hear something? I did. Shadow begins. Yes, we are beginning. So yeah, we need to get armor. We need to get weapons done. And that aside, we might want to put together some kind of template just in case somebody actually wants to become a Space Marine and they can become a Space Marine. It's not something I think we really need. It's kind of one of those things that if we have the time afterwards, we can do that. But like I said, first things, we got to get the armor done, and we need to make the armor as accurate as possible. And then we need to get a bolter done, because if we can get one bolter done, then everything else will come after it. Because there are different patterns of bolters. But every pattern of bolter is basically just a modification on the bolters we already have. Like, if I look at notable bolter patterns... In fact, why don't we go ahead and turn this stuff on? So there's our spreadsheet, same as we left it. And here's our browser. Alright, so notable bolter patterns. The Angelus pattern bolter, ball pattern bolter, the bolter carbine. Okay, this is not exactly what I wanted to see. No, these are like patterns that are specific to certain chapters. Relic bolt gun. I just want to see like the different types. Standard bolter ammunition. I don't care. Alright, here we go. Other bolt weapons. So, bolt pistol. It's a bolter, but it's a pistol. Okay? There's nothing more to it. It's a one-handed bolter. Whereas the regular bolter is generally regarded as being two-handed. So your regular bolter is more of an assault weapon. The bolter is bolt pistol is a sidearm. Heavy bolt pistol, same thing, but for a heavy bolter. Combi bolter, I actually don't know that one. Similar to a storm bolter. What is a storm bolter? It's a double-barreled version of the bolter. Okay, so there you go. It's just a double barrel. It consumes more ammunition than a normal bolter, not normally utilized. However, I mean, you can. And then the combi bolter is simply two standard pattern bolters slaved to fire together. So this is a single gun with a double barrel, and this is a double gun with a single handle. Okay, there we go. What else we got? There's heavy bolters. Pretty obvious. It's just a heavier bolter. The assault bolter, it's more like a rapid fire, I do believe. No, handheld pistol version of the conventional heavy bolter, outfitted with a large box magazine and high-speed autoloader. Short range, its rate of fire and damage are considerable. Alright, so it's kind of like the Mach 10 of bolters. The Avenger Mega Bolter is just an even bigger bolter. The Vulcan Mega Bolter I do believe that that is the Titan class. Yeah, this weapon is commonly mounted on Imperial Titans. Then there's the bolt rifle, which is just like a longer range bolter. Then there's the auto bolt rifle. Same thing, faster firing. Heavy auto bolt rifle, you kind of get the idea. So if we can make one, then we can make all of them. The real changes come in with the ammunition. Because, like I said, if you make one bolter, you can make all the bolters. All you got to do is just change the rate of fire and the range. Except in the case of the Storm Bolter, because it does fire 2 at once, then technically it gets to do like double damage. The only question there is, do you get 2 attack rolls or 1 attack roll? We'll deal with that later. But here's where they really change. It's the ammunition. So, standard bolts. The standard bolt is anti-personnel ammunition for the bolter. It's designed to penetrate the target and then detonate, causing horrific injuries. Basically, every single bolt round is a sabot and grenade. So if you're unfamiliar with sabot rounds, these are something that we've been using for a long time, and I don't have an example of it pulled up, but a sabot round is basically like a needle. It's like firing a needle out of a tank. What you do is you get a regular shell, and you shove it into the tank gun, and you fire it. And as soon as it leaves the barrel, the outside of the shell falls away, and it releases this needle instead of a shell. Now, it doesn't carry as much mass because it's not, well, as massive. It's only a little needle. But because all the mass of that needle is concentrated to one very fine point, it goes through tanks and whatever happens to be inside the tank at the time. Now, the original sabot rounds were solid. Like I said, they were like a needle that you would shoot out. Now they have chemical sabot rounds, where they use things like magnesium that will literally just burn through the armor and incinerate everything inside the tank. This is kind of the same thing, except then it explodes afterwards. So as it says right here, a solid fuel rocket propellant base, because they are rocket propelled. An outer casing to carry it. Yes, the gyro stabilizer to make sure that it stays, stable. A mass reactive fuse has a split-second delay. Okay. A hardened diamantine penetrating tip. That's our sabot. Okay, so that's going to go through the armor. That allows it to penetrate most armor before detonation. And then, of course, number 6, which is, this red spot here, the main charge. So it goes through and then goes boom. So that's your standard bolt. But then they've got these Kraken penetrator rounds. Let's see, these are potent, more armor-piercing rounds than the standard bolt. Inferno bolts. These immolate their target to destroy them with superheated chemical fire. Hellfire bolts. Let's see. This is for use against Tyranids. Each bolt is tipped with thousands of needles and a vial of mutagenic acid. And so this is where a lot of your variety is going to come in for the bolters. It's not necessarily which one you decide to carry. It's what are you shoving into it. And then, of course, there's lots of other weapons that the Astartes will carry. And if we get into, like, the Grey Knights, they get all kinds of different power weapons as well. We're not going to get too specific today. But just, these are things that we will take care of when the time comes. Like, if we get around to playing this one, and it's pretty far down the list at this point. But if we get down to playing 40k, if somebody wants to play Grey Knights, then we'll deal with that, I think, when it comes. But for today, we just want to do a generic Space Marine, and the weapon of the Space Marine is the bolter. So that's what we're gonna do. Now, we've got all these stuff here for our Space Marine. And I want to start off with the armor, because as iconic as the bolter is, more iconic is the armor. I mean, the armor is actually more iconic than the Astartes itself, because most people never even see an Astartes outside of their armor. I would wager a lot of people out there probably don't even know that the Astartes have faces, because you so rarely see them without their helmet. There's only a few chapters of Space Marine who will regularly go without helmets. And to my knowledge, that's pretty much just going to be the Space Wolves and the Grey Knights. The Space Wolves because, well, they're the whole primal faction kind of thing. They wear the armor, but even then, they drape their armor like animal skins and furs and things like that. And then the Grey Knights... The Grey Knights because screw the rules. They're the Grey Knights. So the armor is the most important thing that we got to do. And the most important thing is, what does the armor do? For example, last time when we were going through all the different additions that the Astartes are getting, we looked at something like the Biscopia. Okay, and this laces the bones and muscles of the Astartes with growth hormones, which greatly increases their mass, and it greatly increases their strength. Meaning that your average Astartes can lift about a ton. And when we did the math and we factored everything in, which was up here, we figured that if one bulk is about 6 pounds, 5 bulk is 30 pounds. That means that if you can lift a ton, that's like 320 or 330 strength. It's enormous. However, an Astartes in power armor can lift about 10 tons. And so we really need to be careful when we're making this, because I pulled up both the Starjammer site and I pulled up the Archives of Nethys, because as I've been doing some research, I think I've found out that this actually does have some benefits. For example, if we needed to make starships, we can come down here and make starships. I mean, we did this already when we did the Star Trek one, but we can build starships. Over here, I found out we actually can't. Hey, JP's in the chat. Hello, JP. Good to see you. I actually found out that on this website, though, while they do have other information that this one doesn't have, like if we come down here to look at equipment and armor, and we look at powered armor, we've got some power armor in here. We can see everything. However, if we scroll down, power armor descriptions, capacity, usage, bulk, hybrid power armor, some samples. There's a few samples down here. We've got the battle harness, the cargo lifter. We got a flight frame, a Jarl Slayer, and a spider harness, which is really cool. This is basically the Iron Spider suit. However, if you notice, there's actually a lot of heavy armors over here. And we didn't touch half of them. However, if we come over here to the Archive of Nethys, it's got information on all of them. So, if you pick one of them, any of them, how about an encounter suit? There's information on it. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to use both of these. Because while the Archive of Nethys has lots of information on the basic equipment, if we wanted to go through and make starships here, then we want vehicles and starships. Okay? and that's it. Click here for remaining rules and starships. Okay? So, building starships. Oh, it takes us to the core rule book. So we don't actually get the information on the Archive of Nethys. No. We would have to buy the book for that. By the way, for anybody out there who might be interested, Christmas is coming. And Kitty likes books. Just saying. Anyway, so we can use the Archive of Nethys for some stuff. We can use the Starjammer wiki for other stuff. And by combining the two of these, we will get more or less one somewhat comprehensive wiki. We're going to have to do the best we can. For the time being, though, we're going to stick here on the Archive of Nethys because we need to get all the information on a suit of armor. And this encounter suit is actually kind of cool. So this armor is made out of a rubbery blue material grown by... I can't read this. Brathu? Yeah, Barathu conglomerates. Popular among early-stage Barathus who are not yet as skilled at adapting to various environments, it was developed by and designed for Bathrus. As such, they are highly adjustable, easily accommodating to Bathru's ever-changing physiology. Reduce the DC for engineering checks to adjust these armors by 5. If you pay a professional to adjust the armor instead of doing it yourself, it costs 5% of the armor's purchase price. So there we go, encounter suit. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to pick like the most awesome suit here to see how it scales. And we're going to copy the format for it. So like this is the best power armor in the game. Okay, if you're just playing vanilla Starfinder, this is the best one. The shimmering golden armor is primarily made of reinforced Astartes, an extremely light and durable proprietary material developed by the Kasathan Doyanate. One of the most expensive and well-designed armors produced by the Kasathan, Starguard deflects energy attacks nearly as effectively as its reinforced frame absorbs physical blows. The interior of the helmet provides a continuous status update about your surroundings, providing you with blind sight, vibration within a range of 120 feet. And on top of that, it gives you a strength score of 30, which is a plus 10 bonus, and it does all kinds of other stuff. Now, the usage for this is basically one battery cell per hour. And of course, the usage for an Astartes armor is forever. I don't actually know what they use to power them, but as far as I know, Astartes armor doesn't ever run out of power. Or at least, if you are going to find an Astartes armor that ever ran out of power, you'd have to go like deep in the lore. Because it's definitely not going to run out in any battle. It's got to be some kind of fusion. In fact, I wonder, does it say? Let's look. So, each suit possesses a full suite of life support functions for operation in hostile environments, an automated Medicae system to provide some level of first aid to a wounded wearer, and a highly advanced, fully integrated tactical targeting and threat analysis system known as Autosenses. The suit would be heavy and cumbersome to wear, but for the electrically motivated fiber bundles within the armor that replicate the wearer's movement and enhances their strength beyond its already considerable superhuman baseline. You know, for Space Marines. Rather than simply being worn, a Space Marine's armor integrates with him. It can take many solar decades to forge a single suit of power armor, which basically means it's priceless. Okay? That means that if you come over here and say, oh, look at this! Starguard armor! I want that! How much do I need to spend on that? Oh, the price is 904,500 credits. So if you can get yourself 1,000,000 credits, you can buy yourself a set of Star Guard. Do you know how much it costs to buy a suit of Astartes power armor? The answer is you don't. You just don't. Okay. Each is maintained with absolute care and devotion by a chapter serf, or even the Space Marines themselves. Each suit is a unique artifact with a spirit and history deeply valued by the chapter. Okay, we knew that. It has a range of auxiliary systems that improve Space Marines' effectiveness, including autosenses made up of thought-activating communication system, augers, audio filters, targeting reticules, and numerous other features that we will have to get into. Life support functions include pain suppressors, combat stimulants, and anti-venoms. It'd be anti-venin, actually. Reinforced greaves incorporate gyroscopic stabilizers and power units that magnetize the sole of the armor's boots for zero gravity and vacuum combat, which is actually pretty standard on all armors, even light armor in Starfinder. Primaris Space Marines now wear modular Mark X power armor. We're not really worried about that, though. We're not going to be probably playing Primaris Space Marines. Again, Phobo power armor, probably not going to need it since that is by the Vanguard Space Marines and the Revivers. The Marks S Gravis and Omnis, probably not. So, while the power armor is most commonly associated with the Space Marines of the Adeptus Astartes, these Sisters of Battle and many Inquisitors also use power armor of some sort, which is fine. We have an entire array of power armors in Starfinder that anybody can wear. This is just going to be unique to them. So, let's get started on this. The first thing we're going to need is a format. So we're going to say Astartes power armor. There we go. Now, as we stated before, when we talked about level adjustments, I'm going to go ahead and just copy this. Will this copy well? Not really. Not really. Undo that. That was awful. I'll do it myself. Let's see. Item level and price. EAC and then KAC. Then we have max dexterity, armor check, and speed. Then we have strength, damage, and size. Capacity, usage. Weapon slots, upgrade slots, and bulk. So weapon slots, upgrade slots, and there's bulk, right? Yeah. Bulk. Alright, so this is all the stuff that we got to fill in. Now, as we stated before when we were talking about level adjustments, the very fact that the Space Marine is going to get all of this stuff means that the Space Marine is going to have a pretty high level adjustment, which is to say, pretty much your Space Marine is going to be a level 20 character, like, right out the gate. This is going to mean two things. Number one, your Space Marine will be just incredibly powerful right out the gate. It also means that they're really not going to improve by much. I mean, something that I kind of want to, something that I never really dealt with is skills. Because they don't really have a whole lot in the way of skills. But then again, they really don't need a whole lot in the way of skills. Yeah, we don't even really need to worry about that. Something I probably should have put up here. I'm just going to go ahead and call it. I'm just going to say plus 20 level adjustment. All right. So Space Marines are going to be level 20 characters. It means that whatever you rolled is what you got. Your character does not really improve. You might pick up better equipment along the way, maybe, but your character does not improve. You're not going to pick up a whole bunch of new feats. You're not going to really improve your skills. You're just going to be you. And if that's okay with you, then that's great. Let's see, JP says skills versus feats. Well, here's the thing. You acquire both of them as you level up. So every time you level up, whether that's in Pathfinder, Starfinder, Dungeons and Dragons, Call of Cthulhu, Shadowrun, all of these, every time you level up, you get skill points. Now, generally speaking, you're capped at the number of points you can put into any one skill. Capped at usually whatever your level happens to be. So if you're a level 3 character, you can't have any more than 3 points in any one skill. But you still get a certain number of skill points to use. Which is why you have some characters who are called skill monkeys. Here, it would probably be the... Who would it probably be? The operative? Probably? Let's see, stamina points. Yeah, here we go. Skill ranks per level. It's 8 plus your intelligence. Oh, and Tuck says, have I ever played a D100 based roleplay system before? I have not actually played one, but I am familiar with them. For example, I do believe that Call of Cthulhu also runs on a D100 system. And I'm a little familiar with it, but I've never actually played it. And I've never actually played Call of Cthulhu because I never thought I could do well enough at it. Call of Cthulhu requires a very different kind of DMing. It requires you to be more of a writer than a DM, because you have to put together a mystery story, and mysteries are really hard to write well. Like, anybody can write a mystery, but a good mystery takes a particular kind of writer. Which is why, if you ask somebody if they like mysteries and they say Stephen King, you know that person does not actually like mysteries, okay? Stephen King is not a mystery writer. Just because you have to solve something in the end that was unknown doesn't make it a mystery. So yeah, I'm a little bit familiar, not overly familiar, and since you're the one that told me that there even was a D100 based Warhammer RPG already, yeah, obviously I have no familiarity with that. And since I don't have the books and I don't have money, finding information on that is also kind of hard. I haven't seen any kind of wiki or archive or anything like that for that system yet. Which isn't to say I'm not interested, I just haven't seen it yet. Oh, and Tuck says, yes, players tend to either catch on quickly or wander obliviously, missing the point of what I feel are obvious hints. Oh, no, you... Okay. Okay. It's story time. I'm sorry, we're taking a break. It's story time right now. So I had is a kind of like a mini dungeon. Okay, what I had done is I had made up a little mini dungeon that I wanted to use in one of my stories, and it was called the Temple of Gemini. Now, if you're familiar with the astrological sign Gemini, Gemini is called the twins because the symbol for Gemini is two characters. And here's what it was. There was a whole story that came with the Temple of Gemini. And the story was this. Basically, you had three kingdoms, okay? Three kingdoms that were perpetually at war. They had been fighting forever. Nobody actually knew the reason why they were fighting anymore. All they knew is that they were fighting at this point. And so they were completely deadlocked. None of them had the advantage, none of them were exceptionally weak, except for one kingdom. And the one kingdom kind of held its own, but it also wasn't attacked nearly as much because it didn't have as much value. There's no point really going after something if it's not worth your time. And so everything was balanced. They weren't offensive, but at the same time, they weren't getting hammered. However, as the story went, one day, this weaker kingdom came across a dark and terrible power, a new kind of magic that would completely upset the balance. And so, when they were given the opportunity for power, they took it. And with this great and terrible power, not only did they manage to overpower the other two kingdoms together, but they completely subjugated them. And it became a time of great darkness and misery. And this period went on for a long time, with this previously weaker kingdom being steeped in evil and darkness, until eventually the people cried out that they needed a savior. And so, during an eclipse, a power came down between these cities, something that nobody knew about, but it affected two people, two common people. And these people had the inextricable urge to come together. They didn't know each other, had no idea that either one even existed. They just knew that they had to go. They had to come to the third kingdom. And so they did. Each one independently came to the kingdom, and when they came together, they found a strength in each other that would allow them to do what needed to be done, which was to remove this darkness from the third kingdom. And so together, greater than the sum of their parts, they walked right into the third kingdom, right up to the main gates. They walked through the main gates. They walked right through to the actual castle, where they turned the king there turned the great and powerful darkness on them, and they were unscathed. And so then, now that they had the power to actually stand up against this, they used their combined power to destroy the darkness, to purge the evil from this kingdom, and to bring in a new era of peace and prosperity, not only for the third kingdom, not only for the two that they came from, but for all three of them together. And once it was done, they went back to their lives, they gave up their power, and everybody lived happily ever after. I thought it was a wonderful legend. It's simple, it tells you everything you need to know about it. And so that was supposed to be the lead-in. I ended up using this as kind of like a side quest inside of a bigger campaign. But here's the actual dungeon that they had to go through, and then the power at the end. So the idea behind the dungeon is it had 6 trials in it, each one of them corresponding to one of your main attributes. There was a strength trial, there was a dexterity trial, there was a constitution trial, intelligence, wisdom, charisma. Okay? You have to pass each one of these. But the idea was, number 1, every single one of them could be passed by a person who had 10 in every category. So you did not need to be a hero to get through these. Like, the very first test was you had to climb some stairs. Now, the catch here is that the stairs were about 8 feet tall. So you had to literally climb the stairs. And you had to carry a bucket of water up the stairs to water a pot. And that's it. You had to carry the bucket of water up the stairs and water the flower pot up at the top. So you need to be strong enough to climb the stairs, which, not hard, especially if you have help. More importantly, because the stairs are 8 feet tall, you need help. It takes 2. One person has to help the other one get up there. The person who's up there has to help the person who's down get up. And they have to pass the bucket of water up one stair after another to do so. Then there was a dexterity challenge that involved balancing. There was a constitution challenge, which I forget what the constitution challenge, it's been a while. But more importantly, there was an intelligence challenge. Now, for the intelligence challenge, you had to know the legend of Gemini, because there was a puzzle to solve. There's a door, and in the legend, the kingdoms were identified as being red, blue, and yellow. Okay, yellow was the smaller one, and so in the room there was. Oh wait, I actually remember what the Constitution one was now. You had to swim. Right. So you come up out of the water, you enter into this room. There's a door. The door doesn't open. There's no handle on the door, there's no lock on the door, there's nothing. It's just a door, and there's some way to move it. On either side of the door, there's a flagpole with a little red and blue flag on it. Okay? And in the middle of the room, there is a little stocky pole in the floor with a little yellow flag on it. Okay, so you got the 2 big kingdoms, red and blue, you got the little yellow kingdom. And overhead, there is... Oh, and JP says, all you have to do is go up the stairs. Hard cut to the guy in a wheelchair at the bottom. Look, I said you gotta have, you need to have help. That would have actually been really interesting. How do you do it? Okay, but anyway, back to the puzzle. So 2 flagpoles on either side of the door, the short one in the floor. And by the way, the flagpoles are actual poles. The short one in the floor is bigger around. It's more solid, and it goes into the floor. And then overhead, there is a... What would you call it? Kind of like a chandelier. It's basically a giant wheel, but it's got some candles on it, and it's hanging from the ceiling. It's like a cheap chandelier. And so here is your test. Get through the door. All right? And so this was the test for my players, and I'm sitting there saying, all right, figure it out. And they're going through and they're saying, okay, can we open the door? No. It doesn't have a lock. No. Does it have a handle? No. Can we break the door? You could try, but it's a pretty solid door. You might be here a while. There's probably a faster way through. And so they're going over this, and they're trying to figure everything out. And it gets to the point where I have to start dropping hints, because here's the solution. I told you, the chandelier overhead looks like a wheel. You have to get up with just like somebody standing on top of each other's shoulders. You have to reach up high enough to unhook the chandelier wheel and just drop it to the floor. Once you've unhooked the chandelier and dropped it, the wheel goes on top of the short peg. It just sits there and it locks in place. Then you take the red flagpole and the blue flagpole, and if you inspected the wheel, you'd notice that there's holes in the outside of the wheel. You plug the poles into the wheel, and now you can turn the wheel, which opens the door. I'm not exaggerating when I tell you that it took an hour for my players to solve this. It was a, let's see, drop the chandelier, install the wheel, remove the poles, install the poles, turn the wheel. Let's be generous and call it a 5-step puzzle. It took an hour and multiple subtle hints for them to figure it out. It doesn't matter how simple you make your puzzles, I can guarantee they will fail every time. It's gotten to the point where I've realized that if you're going to put puzzles or riddles or anything like that into your games, you should probably go back and pick like an elementary school book, because that's probably the best they're gonna do. Unless you're a masochist and you just enjoy sitting there while your players try to figure it out, then I guess you can go ahead and pick up an old Batman comic and grab one of the Riddler's riddles, because some of those were super obscure. But yeah, that was the test. Now, once they got through that, the rest of it was fine. The room after that was a room filled with gold and treasure. All they had to do was not touch anything. You know, test of will. And the other one was a literal endurance match where every single turn they took straight damage, but they just had to persevere. And if they did it together, if they stayed close together, they could pass through the corridor, and if they got to the end of the corridor, then they could open the door. You just had to do it together. And then, if you did all of that, you actually got to the end of the Temple of Gemini, and you could get the Power of Gemini. And here's the thing about the Power of Gemini, and this was so good. The Power of Gemini required you to make a new character. Here's what you did. You got to keep your name, you got to keep your race, you got to keep everything in your description. But your stats, okay, your ability scores, became the highest of the two scores that you two had. So if one of you has a 17 in strength, the other one has a 13 in strength, now you both have 17. If one of you has an 18 in dexterity and a 12 in dexterity, now you both have 18 dex. Same for constitution, intelligence, will, and charisma. You both get to have the highest of your two sheets. Your saves, same thing. You get the highest of each of your saves. You do not get to share your class skills. However, you do get to share your skill, or your actual skills, and your feats. So, if somebody is a wizard and somebody is a fighter, the fighter cannot just suddenly cast magic. However, if the fighter had like one level of wizard and they could cast a little bit of magic, then they can use all the meta magic. They can use all the meta magic skills that the wizard would know. So they get to combine all the best aspects of both character into one character, and then they both get their own copy of that character. It was wonderful. It was not super overpowered. JP says puzzle rooms should also include a timer for brevity. Like, this room will fill with water in 15 minutes. Your time starts now. Actually, most dungeon masters will use an hourglass. But I play online, so hourglasses are kind of hard. And actually, I did do that once. In the Temple of Ao. That's A-O, not O-W. In the Temple of Ao, there was a room that you had to pass through. And it was just a normal entrance room for anybody who was in the cult. And anybody who was in the cult would know how to get through it. Because when you walk in the room and you close the door, the room actually does begin to fill with water. And you have X number of turns until the room is full. But here's the thing. The theme of the dungeon was illusions. And so all you had to do was disbelieve the water. Because the way to get through the room is to actually let the room fill with water. It's a time gate. The room fills with water in X amount of time, and then the other side opens, which means that it means that the anybody who was entering the building would have to wait. So if somebody had infiltrated, like there was an army, then sure, they can walk in there, but they can't actually get through until the time gate is done. So the cultists can like set up defenses, lock the door, whatever. On the other hand, though, because it is filling with water, as long as you believe that it's water, you could actually just stop breathing and suffocate. Which, you know, my players were actually doing. They were actually suffocating because it's like, does anybody feel wet? And they're just like, I don't know. I just kind of assumed. It's like, yeah, you assumed. Does anybody actually feel wet? And it's like, I don't know. Do we feel wet? No! It's like, wait. Can I make a will save? It's like, yes! It's like, I make a will save. It's like, okay, what'd you roll? I rolled a 17. It's not water! Did you notice that you couldn't swim? Did you notice that every time you tried to swim up, you just went straight back down? Even the simplest of puzzles. I do really try to make my players think outside the box as much as I can. However, I do have a bad habit of going a little overboard. That's my B. Tuck says the Temple of Ao, that being a U, the GM's favorite temple. Bring at least one trap disarming specialized rogue. Actually, there was no trap in there that could have been disarmed. There was a solution for every trap, but none of them could have been disarmed. Let's see. The water one, I just told you. The next one after that would have been the night trap, where there was a suit of armor that held a sword. But here's the thing. It was a phantasmal knight. You could not hurt it. If you swung your weapon at it, your weapon would go right through it. There was another sword in the room. If you picked up that sword, the sword would work against the knight. And so it was very simple. you could beat the knight with that sword. Or, if you were wearing one of the cult's medallions, the knight wouldn't bother you. But they never bothered to try and figure out what the medallions were. After that, it was the Beholder. So there was a room that had a Beholder in it. And Beholders are a nasty piece of work if you were ever familiar with them. And it was actually, no, as I recall, no, it wasn't a Beholder, it was two Beholders and a Goth, I think. Basically, 2 eyes and a mouth. And so you walk in here and you're just screwed. Because 1 Beholder is bad enough. 2 is worse. And a Goth is like a Beholder, but instead of being a giant eye, it's got a giant mouth. And it comes with the ability to swallow whole. But the thing is, they're all illusory. And so if you just realize that these things can't hurt you, then they can't hurt you. And so you can just walk through all of their attacks. But yeah, there's nothing in there that you could have disarmed. You just had to figure it out. And after having the illusory water and the illusory knight, the fact that the Beholders were also illusions should not have come as a surprise. Just do a will save. Which, I mean, they eventually did after taking significant damage. JP said the Temple of Ow. This sounds like an awesome dungeon run. Yeah, well, I kind of think that applies to most of them. Most of them are just painful. Alright, though. Story time's over. But yeah, puzzles. The bane of every DM's existence. They're fun. Don't get me wrong. They're tons of fun. But if you don't have the right group for it, it's not going to work well. And... oh, Tuck says, find the treasure in the Temple of Ow, wonders if the temple is real, the temple disappears, treasure disappears, party's sad. No, there was an actual treasure at the end of it. The problem is that they were actually hired to retrieve the treasure, not take the treasure. Okay, they were hired on a job. And you have to know Dungeons and Dragons lore for this one. Ow, that is to say AO, is the overgod. Ow is the god that created the multi-planes. It created the other deities, the higher deities, lesser deities, everything. Ow is the one who created everything. If you are familiar with Dungeons and Dragons lore, especially if you played the Baldur's Gate games, and you're familiar with the Time of Troubles, which is where the Baldur's Gate games are set, the entire Time of Troubles came about because of Ow. You see, the gods were screwing up, okay? Things were falling into chaos and disarray, the gods were fighting each other, and Ow came back like the disappointed parent and said, "What are you doing?" And so Ow pimp-slapped all the gods out of their divinity and into the mortal realm, and said, you know what? Now you're all going to be mortal. Now you're going to have to figure out life as one of your own little devoted. And if you survive long enough to reestablish your power, you can reascend to your divine position. And a lot of gods died. A lot of gods died. So that's who Ao is, and the idea behind the Temple of Ao is that there was a cult who was trying to get his attention because every god has a domain. Every god has worshippers. And all the worshippers get their magic, they get their miracles and everything else, they get their power because all of them worshipping gives power to the god, and then the god then redistributes that power back down to its followers. Okay? Yes, I just called all the gods in Dungeons & Dragons socialists. I'm not apologizing. JP says the Hunger Games for gods. That's actually a really apt analogy. It literally was. And it went about as well for them as it did in the Hunger Games. So yeah, that's how the magic there works. But Ao does not have a pantheon. He doesn't have worshippers. Because he's off doing god stuff. Like, not just god stuff, but like higher god stuff, over god stuff. Who knows what he's actually doing? We don't know. Because he doesn't interact. And so the idea behind the cult in the Temple of Ao is they're trying to get his attention. And they did so by building this medallion, where if you were to wear it, it would potentially give you omnipotent power. And it would let you ascend to godhood. And once you were a god, well, now you're on par with the rest of the gods. Maybe you even stand above the gods. And you can get his attention. Okay? Literally, the entire cult of Ao was just them trying to get God's attention, okay? But here's the thing about the medallion. When I made it, I said there's 3 requirements for godhood. That is, omnipotence. Okay? If you are a god, you need to be able to do anything. Which is not necessarily true for the deities in Dungeons & Dragons. There are things that they kinda can't do. But by and large, when we think of gods, especially if you're Christian, you think like the Christian God, God can do anything. That is why the ancient philosophical question is, can God make a boulder so heavy that even he cannot lift it? I don't know. Can he? If he's God, he can lift anything. But if he's God, he should also be able to make a boulder that is heavy enough that he can't lift it. But then, of course, he can lift it because he's God. So you have to be omnipotent. Okay? Next, you have to be omniscient. Which is to say, you have to know everything. And once you know everything, and you can do anything, you have the ability to reshape anything you want whenever you think about it. You can know what's going on over here, go there, and fix it. Or if you see something that you would like to exist in a certain place, you can go there and say, you know what? This is a good forest. It could use more trees. Now it has more trees. So you need to be omniscient. The next thing you need is omnipresent. You need to exist everywhere at once. And this is something that, canonically, even the gods in fantasy don't have, because the gods are beings. They do actually have an existence. However, if we want to be God, then we need to be omnipresent. We need to exist at all places at one time. And so, I had them roll. If they put it on, they would have to roll to see what their potential was, because if your potential isn't high enough, you'll never ascend to godhood. And then they're required to make X number of rolls to advance towards that ascension, and every failure would punish their constitution. It would literally break them down at the physical level, because that's the power coming into them. And I had 2 players who actually tried to put the damn thing on, even though it was pretty much guaranteed to kill them. And it did kill one of them. The other one actually had such a low potential that they failed, but it never killed them. Tuck says, sounds like a great lore for a system. The first god got bored and chose to create a boulder he couldn't lift. Then tried to lift it and died, leaving the world to all the lesser gods he created. I mean, that's not bad. Especially if we're talking like a planet instead of a boulder. That'd be a good origin story for a planet. But yeah, that was the thing in the Temple of Au, and of course it was being worn by a golem that was immune to it. I mean, golems can't ascend. So the idea was the golem wears it and protects it, and they killed the golem to take the amulet. Even though if they would have crafted a medallion from the cult, they could have just held up the medallion and said, "Hey, would you give that to me?" And the golem would have given it to them. Okay, well, yeah, that was a long tangent. Okay. So let's see if we can get back to this. Now, mind you, I don't mind telling stories. I could tell stories all day. I could tell stories all day long. All right. So, getting back to the power armor. Obviously, it's going to be level 20 armor. That way, only Astartes or anybody who is at an Astartes level could even think about putting it on. The price is priceless. As far as the bonuses to armor. Now is where we need to have some kind of metric. And I need to figure out exactly what is the most common kind of armor. Because I'm not sure. Primaris Space Marines usually wear Mark 10. Well, no, hold on a second. That kind of looks like the modern power armor right there. And that does say... yeah, Ultramarines chapter wearing Mark 10 Tacticus power armor. Okay, so maybe we are making Mark 10 armor. This is Tacticus power armor, though. Let's see. Yeah, it says right here, Tacticus is the most common variant. Alright, so then that's what we're going to build. We're going to build Mark 10 power armor. And that'll take us all the way down here. So it says here, Mark 10 Power Armor, the latest development in power armor designed, developed, and forged on Mars. The latest pattern of power armor was developed for the long-awaited project commissioned by the Ultramarines himself 10,000 years ago to craft a new breed of transhuman warriors. I don't really care about the history so much as I would like to see some feats. And that will help us determine... it'll help us determine what we're actually going to be withstanding. So I suppose one of the first things that we should really look at is, should a bolter be able to penetrate it or not? I mean, Chaos Marines and Space Marines do fight. Chaos Marines also use bolters, and they do kill each other, so they can. But if we look at the tabletop game, you could technically here, have Space Marines versus Imperial Guard. And technically speaking, the Imperial Guard can win. Now, it's not as likely, but, you know, for balance purposes, the Imperial Guard is capable of holding their own. And while they might not go up against an actual Astartes chapter, they could go up against a Traitor chapter, they could go after a Chaos chapter. They could do any of those. So the armor isn't going to be invincible. But it does have to be really, really tough. So here's what I'm thinking. When we look at a Space Marine, okay? The Space Marine is going to have a... The Space Marine is going to have a level 20 advancement, which means that whatever you rolled for your Space Marine is going to be what you've got. Which means that if we wanted to think about this, the best your Space Marine could really be the strength is going to be kind of irrelevant, actually, because they're super strong. And they get stronger. But your dexterity could be 18. Your constitution 18, 18, 18, 18. Okay, so that's like the best you could roll. It's pretty much impossible to roll it, but that's the best you could roll. Which means that when your Space Marine is fighting, it means that how are we going to handle this? Like, how does saves... We haven't even thought about saves. How are saves going to work? How is base attack bonus going to work? Because we can't just give them a base attack bonus of 1. Usually that would be assigned by, usually that would be assigned by whatever, whatever class you're taking. Which I suppose technically it still would be. Technically, it still would be. So, like, if you wanted to be an Astartes, but you also wanted to be this operative, your base attack bonus... do I actually want to change this? Actually, you know what? I'm not going to change this. Okay, here's what's going to happen. Here's what's going to happen. If you are going to play an Astartes, I think that I've been kind of wondering about what kind of Astartes are you going to be. The obvious answer here is that if you do play an Astartes, you're going to be some kind of neophyte. Okay, you're going to be a battle brother, but you're not going to be one of these legendary Astartes. Okay, you're going to be just an Astartes. So if we go ahead and leave this as is, I think it'll actually be fine. So you could have a first level of whatever you wanted. But after that, I mean, it's going to take you a really long time to train anything up. So as for like a base attack bonus, base saves and stuff like that, it's not going to be great for you. However, when we throw on things like all of this stuff, like if you were going to be an operative your fortitude save bonus is going to be a +0, plus whatever your constitution is. So if you get an 18 in your constitution, that's a +4. That's great. But what do you need a fortitude save for? So let's see. Ability scores, character creation, character themes. Yeah. Alignment, how to use alignment, stuff like that. Let's see. Apply ability increases. All right, here we go. Constitution, fortitude saves. This measures your ability to stand up physical punishment or attacks against your vitality and health. Apply your constitution modifier. Yeah, we know that. Hold on a second. Desperately needed a drink there. Alright, so we come back here. Constitution affects your fortitude saves. This is to resist diseases, poisons, and similar threats. It's not very comprehensive. But I guess it doesn't have to be. And it is literally the only thing on here. But, okay. Diseases, poisons, and other similar threats. And my OBS is kind of freaking out, so hopefully that's still working. So, honestly, even if you don't really get a bonus to your fortitude save, you're already pretty much immune to everything already. So I'm not too concerned with that. And as for the base attack bonus, if you took like a soldier, the soldier will start off with a +1 attack or base attack bonus, +2 fortitude save, +2 will save, reflex, no, but that's fine. And so you will start with some bonuses. It may affect your starting choices, but that'll be on you. So I guess I'm not going to think about that too much. Which means that when we're looking at kinetic and energy armor bonuses, for one Astartes to kill another Astartes, first off, they're both going to be the same size, so there's no change in AC there. That means that a naked Astartes, if they had a dex of 18, would have an armor class of 14. Okay, for both of them. And so for another Astartes to hit them, they would need to, at range, also have a dex of 18, and so +4. That's fine, that's great. So we're looking at like a +4 now to hit this mythical Astartes. Once we give them things like their auto senses, we'll be able to hit them. The problem is that there needs to be a difference between hitting and penetration. So maybe we don't actually change the armor bonus that much, and maybe we instead give some kind of damage reduction. Maybe that would be better. So that things like bolters will be dangerous still, but smaller weapons like las guns are not. So why don't we take a look at something, okay? What if we say that a single las gun is literally not a threat to an Astartes in power armor? Let's go back here to our Imperial Guard. Alright, so we established that a las gun is equivalent to an azimuth laser rifle. So let's look that up. We want weapons. And I'm going to go azimuth. Laser pistol, laser rifle. Okay, here we go. So an azimuth laser rifle does 1d8. Which means that if we wanted to, we could go ahead and say that the azimuth laser rifle, if it was immune, we could say the armor would have potentially just an 8 or maybe 10. Yeah, maybe like an 8 or 10 damage reduction, meaning that if you shoot them with this laser rifle, it doesn't even matter if you rolled a max damage. It's not going to affect them. You would need to crit, and even then, it might not do much. These laser rifles actually cap out at 11d6. However, we also have to consider the fact that there are different tiers of lasgun. Just like there's different kinds of bolters, there's different tiers of lasgun. So we'll just go ahead and say that the basic one, the basic lasgun that does 1d8, completely useless. And so right down here, I'm going to go ahead and say kinetic damage reduction is going to be 10, and energy damage reduction will also be 10. Okay? So any of your basic weapons, if you're shooting them at this Astartes, they're not even going to notice. It's not until you get into heavier weapons that they might notice. Because if we look back over here, if we say that anything up to 10, alright? That means that this laser rifle Corona, which you get at level 6. So you're stuck using this thing for the first 5 levels. At level 6, you get to upgrade to a Corona laser rifle, okay? The better lasgun. It does 2d6 damage, which means that unless you roll 1-6 and at least another 5, it does nothing. Oh, JP says 11d6 makes you sound like a hobbit. Ah, yes. But what about second laser rifle? It also does 11d6 damage. Laser rifles akimbo. Alright, so then again, we come down here, laser rifle Aphelion. It does 3d6, and you get this at level 9. Even at 3d6, with a 10-point reduction, you're still looking at only a 50... No, not even a 50-50 chance. You're looking at like a 45% chance of actually doing any damage at all. So just a 10-point damage reduction on Astartes armor makes them basically walking gods. But that also means that the armor bonus, we can just copy. So we come back here and we look at the Starguard armor. The bonus on the armor here is 27 and 29. And what I want to do, I think I'm going to split the difference. And I'm going to say 28 and 28. Okay? Because if we go back and we look at the power armor, and we scroll all the way up, it does say, where was that? Let's see, highly advanced rather than being born. Range of auxiliary systems. I did It did say that it would shrug off energy as well as it did any kind of kinetic stuff, didn't it? Or was that somewhere else? Maybe I read that somewhere else. Either way, I recall it saying that it was just as good versus energy weapons as it was versus kinetic weapons. So, yeah. Just go ahead, split the difference there, 28 in both of them. Maximum dexterity. Space Marines are not known for being extremely dexterous. They are for being known as... They're known for being dexterous for people in power armor. But... not any... They're not ballerinas. So max dex we're going to leave at a +4, I think. What about that Starguard armor? Max dex bonus of +4. Yeah. Armor check penalty. The armor check penalty actually incorporates a lot of things. It incorporates the size of the armor, the weight of the armor, as well as, you know, how nimble are you in the armor? Like, can you do fine things with the armor? Could you pick a lock while you're in armor? Could you swim while you're in armor? And when we think about some of these things, actually the Astartes can't really do this stuff. Like, an Astartes can't swim, as far as I know. Now, they don't have to swim, because the armor is its own life support, and they can probably just hold their breath forever. So, having an armor check penalty be high is probably not a bad thing. I'm going to go ahead and give them an armor check penalty also of a -4. And the max speed, that will have to come back to. Now, strength. Because every single one of these suits will give you a new strength score. And it gives you the bonus that goes along with it. The strength for this is going to be off the charts. So the natural lift in armor is going to be 5 to 10 tons. And just for the sake of my own sanity, I am going to lowball this one. And I'm just going to say 5 tons. Okay? So, if we establish that 5 bulk is 30 pounds, 1 bulk is 6 pounds, okay? We got to turn this into bulk. If 1 ton of weight is 2,000 pounds, then 5 tons is 10,000 pounds. And if I pull up my calculator here and divide 10,000 by 6, that is 1,666.6 repeating bulk. This means that the strength of the power armor, since you can carry 1 bulk per strength, is 1,666. So the strength is going to be that. So what the hell's the modifier on that? As if I even want to ask. Ability scores. Okay. So starting at 10, it's a 0. Starting at 12, it's a +1. And it goes up every 2 after that. So how are we going to figure this? the first thing we're going to do is subtract 11. Because everything under that does not get any kind of ability score. Then, because every 2, you get a plus. If we just divide this by 2, that should give us the modifier. In which case, assuming that I've done all of my math correctly, the strength modifier for an Astartes is a plus 857. I don't know. Did you pass your strength check? Probably. What was your strength check? Oh, to bench press a planet. This is so wildly ridiculous. I can't even. I need a moment. I knew it was going to break me. It broke me. I'm broken now. This is actually on par with vehicles. So the rule of thumb is that converting infantry to vehicle is times 10, and converting vehicle to starship is times 10. So if a starship weapon did 1d6 damage to a starship, it would do 10d6 damage to a tank. And if it actually managed to hit a person, it would do 100d6 damage to a person. Everything scales by 10, which makes it, super easy to keep track of. That means that if we were going to do the same thing here, that an Astartes, if I'm not making too strong of an assumption here, and let me know if I'm going too far off the rails on this one. Okay, let me know if I'm going too far off the rails on this one. That means that if we had an Astartes who wanted to, say, grab a vehicle that was trying to pull away, it means that my Astartes would be able to make a strength check with like a plus 85 to stop that vehicle from leaving. Or, even if it was a starship trying to take off, the Astartes could grab onto, I don't know, a foundation somewhere and grab the starship and get a plus 8 on a strength check to keep the starship from taking off. That's insane. But at the same time, I kind of love it. I do. Alright, so what about damage? How much damage does this power armor do? The Starguard armor does 4d8 bludgeoning damage if you punch somebody with it. And Tux just says yes. Welcome to Astartes. I know. I knew what I was walking into, and we are just dealing with Space Marines. Can you imagine what's going to happen when we get to the Tau? Because the Tau love their mechs. Imagine when we get to make, what's it called? Starts with an H. Is it like a hurricane, I think? I'm not as familiar with the Tau. But when we start making, Tau mechs. Or we get to the Eldar. And their psionic abilities. Can you imagine what happens when we get to the Necron? Warhammer 40k is just broken. Okay, so this Starguard armor does 4d8 damage. What about the Obsidian Mask? This one, let's see. These ominous suits of armor resemble faceless statues of black glass that reflect light in ominously unpredictable ways. When activated, the reflections twist and writhe, granting the wearer an alien presence, universal creature ability with a range of 120 feet. Cool. More importantly, the damage on this one is 4d10 slashing. Interesting. Obviously it's going to be bludgeoning damage. What I do think that we need to take into consideration is just that immense strength. So, like, this has a strength of 30. And here's what I want to do. So this Starguard sets your strength to 30, and 4d8 is going to be 32 damage. So 32 divided by 30 is going to be roughly... It's roughly 1 damage per strength. It's a little higher, but it's kind of negligible. Of course, negligibilities do add up over time. So, if I then multiply this by 1,666, it comes out to 1,777. And there's, some decimal points remaining. Alright, so 1,777. How can we divide this? Can we divide this by 20? What happens then? If we divide it by 20, it comes out to 88.85. So we could round that up or down and say 88 or 89 d20 worth of damage. If we do d12s, it's 148. If we go with d100s, we just move the decimal point, and that'd be 177. No. Yes? Yes. No, 17, excuse me. 17 d100s. I didn't move my decimal point far enough. Which I'm actually kind of good with. There's a lot of range on those. However, I would like to have some nice blocky numbers for this one. So what I'm thinking is, for damage, why don't we go with 15 d100? So we're talking about an upper cap of 1,500 damage just by getting punched by an Astartes. Basically, you're getting turned into red mist. However, we also have to consider the things that Astartes might be called to fight. I mean, I'm talking about Tyranid overlords, which they're expected to take down with their bare hands if they have to. It's kind of fitting. And you know what? Something else up here. This Biscopia, we never actually figured out what the strength bonus for this would be. $315 divided by 2 is going to be 157. Alright, so even your basic Space Marine will get a plus 157 bonus on their strength. They can easily tear a phone book in half, is what I'm saying. Okay, size. Oh, no, don't do that. Don't do that. I don't care about that. Okay, there we go. Size is obviously going to be large. Okay? Capacity. Now, the capacity is how many charges it can have, and the usage is how many it uses per hour. So the power pack in the in this Starguard armor is 40. That's how much the battery holds. And the usage is 1 per hour, meaning that the Starguard can go for 40 hours before it needs to be recharged or the power pack replaced. However, as I said before, I've never actually heard of an Astartes power armor running out of power. Let's see, that's trivia. I don't care about that. History and development. So the Mark 10, the latest development, we already read that. What I think I might want to do is go back to the Mark 1 armor, because maybe we'll find out more stuff there. So, history and development, okay? I don't want to go into history, but apparently we're going to go into history. So, power armor has been in use for a long time. The earliest incarnation, the suit was not fully sealed or life-supporting, this being unnecessary, while it was still used confined solely to Terra. The common image, yes. The bold two-headed Aquila on the chest. But I want to see about the power pack. Problem is, if I search for power, we'll be here all day. Like, how many instances of power are there? 305 mentions of power. I wonder, is it fusion? If I just do that, let's see, transfusion ports. Aha, here we go. The armor's backpack contains the suit's main power source, a subatomic microfusion generator and backup solar power converter, and 100 solar cell batteries to store the absorbed solar energy. That does not tell me a whole lot. It does mean that they can recharge basically wherever they want. Let's see. What if we search for backpack? Backpack power unit. Houses a power core for the armor, as well as reserve cells and emergency solar collector. Temperature regulator, yes. The suit also has its own backup power supply and solar array, meaning the suit can continue to operate for a short time without its backpack. The suit contains a detox injector with 5 doses. Don't care. Okay, backpack, main power source. Highly efficient subatomic microfusion reactor core provides all the power it needs. It does contain a reserve power supply and backup micro solar panel in case of emergencies. It can be recharged by the solar panel. When fully charged, should provide enough power to last for a solar month, as long as all non-vital systems are disabled. As long as all non-vital systems are disabled, without the need for major maintenance or resupply. That's the reserve power, though. It doesn't actually say anything about the reactor. No. No. Let's actually search instead for reactor. Let's see. So this is talking about Traitor Legion stuff. And that just says, okay. I'm guessing that it basically lasts forever. I mean, I'm sure that it needs to be refueled at some point, but I cannot figure out how long the power core actually lasts. Let's see. Microfusion reactor. I'm just going to do a quick little search here. I'm on Reddit currently. Tuck says, unless I'm mistaken, it is some sort of fission that means you basically never need to replace it. I'm going to make the same assumption. Just because this is one of those details where, like, I care from a mechanical standpoint. Because it's one of those circumstances where I don't actually need to care about this until I do. Like, for example, if we're playing a 40k campaign, okay? And you have been dispatched by some inquisitor to go investigate some kind of heretical whatever on this other planet, okay? You arrive there, all right? Now, the mission is simple, okay? And the campaign is simple. All you have to do is land on the planet, go inside of the temple. It's a Necron temple of some kind. And during the campaign, because, you know, these things happen, you go in, you trigger something, the Necrons start to wake up, and now you, having an Astartes on your team, and then maybe you have a rogue traitor human operative, maybe you have some kind of Tau Xeno engineer or mechanic, but whatever, you have your party there, and you have an Astartes on your team. You're fighting off the Necrons, okay? And you all flee back there. And as the ship is taking off, something happens. Maybe like a... what would it be? Like a scarab ship? Scarab something comes out of the ground, and I've got it shooting up at you. And, like, somebody screws up their piloting check, or the scarab ship, whatever, gets a critical hit. Okay, the ship is going down. Okay? The ship is going down, the ship crashes, the ship is scrapped. Like, you need parts to fix the ship, you ain't got the parts. Now, the campaign was find the heretical whatever it was, either capture it or destroy it and return. That campaign is over. Now, it's survive until you can get a signal back to Holy Terra so they can send another ship to come and get you. Now, you are running, hiding, everything else to try and survive. Now, I actually do need to know how long does that power armor last? Because we could theoretically come up against a situation where now our super powerful Astartes, who can pick off a fly at 5 miles away, who is immune to basically every kind of weapon the Necron have to throw, okay? Who has immunity to every environment because of the life support system inside the power armor. If the armor shuts down, now my Astartes might have to say, look, I gotta ditch it. Okay? The solar cells are failing. There's not enough light on this planet. The reactor is running on empty. And now, this previously godlike Astartes has been brought way down. And suddenly things that would have been absolutely not even a consideration for the Astartes before are now things that they have to think about. Are they still strong enough to use a bolter? Absolutely, until they run out of ammo. Are they still easily the strongest thing in this party? Maybe even on this planet? Yes! But we did just cut down the Astartes' strength by like 80%. And now they know they actually do have to breathe. They don't have a suit of armor that's giving them all the air they need. These are things that I gotta be able to think about. Okay, so I'm just looking on Reddit here, and this person did actually ask, dumb question, but how is power armor powered? Can it be charged, or is it powered indefinitely, and can it run out of power? So the same thing that I'm asking. And as a matter of fact, why don't I just bring this over here? Okay. This person just says, yeah, it's power. They went right back to the Warhammer wiki we were just looking at. This one says, Power Pack has a little nuclear reactor that powers the whole thing. Fun fact, the Death Guard intentionally broke and modified theirs so they had steampunk-looking pipes and they could open to release radiation. And this one just says, you lift it with your muscles, you silly limey. Use a zoggin noggin. I didn't know that orcs had power armor. Okay, but that doesn't help. That's not helping. Let's see. Alright, well here's another Reddit thread. Let's see, what happens when a Space Marine's armor runs out of power? Here we go. This one says, I understand a Space Marine's power armor can last for about a month on a full charge from what I got. It also has a solar panel that can be used for recharging in an emergency. But what happens when there is no sunlight for our boys to photosynthesize? What happens if they're fighting for too long in the dark and that they absolutely run out of power? Is the armor so heavy they cannot move, or are they so massively strong all it does is slow them down a little bit? Of course, the first comment says, who said it only lasts a month or so? I've read plenty of times of them being in battle for months and months straight, no resupply, and down to beating the enemy to death with empty bolt guns, but never a mention of running out of power. I think they're fusion power, so it would last for years. Which, you know, is kind of what I expected to see. There have been older lore mentions saying they get locked in and can't move, but this has been superseded by newer lore. Let's see. This person just says, I believe the fusion packs run for centuries, if not millennia, so the chances of them running out of power mid-battle are slim to none. This person says, it's worth noting that the last for a month thing comes from the backup power source, which is what I thought. The normal power pack is a mini nuclear fusion reactor, which wouldn't run out under any normal circumstances. So I think what we're gonna have to settle on is it basically just never runs out. Again, it's kind of what I expected. It's kind of a bad answer, though. I don't like that answer. But it's all I've really got to work with. Still, though, I think that we can work with this. Because what if we just skip? What if we skip the nuclear reactor, okay? What if we just say the nuclear reactor isn't functioning, or it's not installed, or whatever? Maybe this is a new kind of armor that doesn't actually have a nuclear reactor, okay? So instead, we're going to run off the solar cells. Maybe you got like a hand-me-down suit of armor, okay? And the Tech Marine couldn't install the reactor. So what if we say this, okay? What if we say that the power pack has a capacity of 30? And the usage will simply be 1 per day. Alright? So we're going to run off of those batteries, which, you know, do photosynthesize. And we'll simply say that it'll last for 30 days. And you just have to find some time in the next 30 days, the next month, to recharge it. Now, that's taken care of. Weapon slots, upgrade slots. That's a little bit harder because Space Marine armor is so very, very customizable. If we go back here and look at the Starguard armor, this has 4 weapon slots and 5 upgrade slots. And I wonder if they go into that. Powered armor. Click here for remaining rules on powered armor. Here we go. So we've got entering and exiting powered armor proficiency, descriptions. JP says, mine will need a cup holder. That's on you. You can have whatever upgrades you want. If you want to spend one on a cup holder, there you go. It's just going to need a really, really long straw to get inside your armor. Alright, so weapon slots. Ranged weapons can be installed in most power armor. The maximum number is equal to the powered armor's weapon slots. And upgrade slots, same thing, but this is used for technological and magical upgrades. See below. Let's see. Weapon slots. A suit of power armor can mount a number of 1- or 2-handed ranged weapons indicated by its weapon slot value. Weapons mounted in the power armor's weapon slot require no hands to wield or carry so long as it has power, but reloading requires a free hand unless you have an automated loader upgrade. Mounted weapons designed for a creature the size of the power armor or smaller impose no penalty on attack rolls. It takes a full action to mount or remove it. A weapon cannot be removed. Okay. So that's fine. Let's see. So this can be a number of 1- or 2-handed weapons, but it does not seem to matter whether it's one-handed or two-handed. So, like the Grey Knights, because they are more of a melee-focused chapter, they take their bolt guns and they strap them to their arm. And so they have arm-mounted bolt guns. But I do believe that the Salamanders also do the same thing with some of their flamers, unless they're carrying heavy flamers. But they'll like mount flamers because Salamanders like fire. However, when I look at some of these armors, there's not a whole lot of room on them to really attach a whole lot. So the arms are obvious. We can strap weapons to the arms all day long. I don't think I've ever seen a Marine with shoulder-mounted stuff. I have seen tech marines who have added things like arms or tentacles to their armor. So that's one thing, but that might be special for tech marines. And we can make a special armor. Once we've got the base armor made, we can start making modifications. Then again, you know, attaching a power arm or a servo tentacle or whatever it is, that could also fall under upgrades. So I'm actually going to say weapon slots 2. 1 for each arm. Upgrade slots, however, because of the way they work, I may actually be using these. So, for example, we go all the way up to the top here. We say each suit possesses a full suite of life support functions for operation in hostile environments, an automated Medicae system to provide some level of first aid to a wounded wearer, and a highly advanced and fully integrated tactical targeting and threat analysis system known as autosenses. Okay. So let's start working on this. Life support. I do believe that life support comes standard in all powered armor. I think it actually kind of comes in all armor in general. So armor is the easiest, most cost-effective way. Yes, yes, yes. Made of different substances. Most suits of armor consist of a helmet, gloves, boots, and a bodysuit that offers head-to-toe protection. Unless otherwise specified, the boots also include a functionality to anchor your feet to a solid surface in 0G, allowing you to orient yourself and return to normal footing. It does not say anything, however, about life support. Okay, environmental protections. Activation and duration. Alright. A suit of armor's environmental protections last for a number of days equal to its item level. Activating or deactivating these environmental protections takes a standard action if you're wearing the suit. If you have access to a suit that is unattended or worn by a helpless creature, you can turn it on as a full action. Okay, so there we go. It actually is built in automatically. So we don't need to waste an upgrade slot on that. However, it does say it lasts for a number of days equal to its item level. Technically speaking, that would mean that our Astartes power armor only actually lasts for 20 days. Which doesn't seem right. So I'm going to just remove this then. I'm just going to go ahead and put X there. Okay? It doesn't have a level now. It's not bound by levels. So the life support will last for, I suppose, as long as it has power. Makes sense. Then it's going to have a Medicae system and auto senses. And what else did it say? Oh, it says tactical targeting and threat analysis system known as auto senses. Okay. Now, can I find anything about the Medicae system? Alright. So, Life Science Monitor. It contains a suite of life support functions including an auto Medicae, equipped with various painkillers, combat stimulants, and antivenoms. And it is literally the only other mention. Alright, so do we have an equivalent that we can use? Breathing and pressure, radiation temperature, okay. Armor upgrades. So let's take a look and see what we can get in terms of medical. And let's go ahead and start from the top. So force field, no. Magic resistor, no. Rel state contingency? What is this? This upgrade monitors your environment and status, instantly placing you in Rel state whenever your life is threatened. The first time each day you would take hit point damage, and again, the first time each day you would take damage that reduces you to 0 hit points. You can use this armor upgrade as a reaction. You don't take the triggering damage. You cease to exist until the beginning of your next turn when you return to existence in the spot you were when the armor's upgrade was activated. This is not what we're looking for. Medical interface Mark III. Okay, item level 19, item level 15. Okay. Stimulates your metabolism and natural healing capabilities with nanites. When you would take a 10-minute rest to regain stamina points, you also recover some hit points. The amount of healing depends on the type of medical interface as listed below. Okay. All that really does is just restore hit points. So we're going to have to kind of... We're going to have to get a little creative here. So that's really the best that we can get. So we're going to go back and we're going to look at this. So this says it is equipped with various painkillers, combat stimulants, and antivenoms. Okay, so I'm going to delete this right now. We'll get back to it. But I'm going to say painkillers, stimulants, and anti-venom. So now, let's go ahead and look at medicine. So we've got equipment, technological, to do other items, special materials. I want... What do I want? Artifacts, augmentations, computers, hybrid items, technological items? Names, models... No... Well, there's med kits in here. Medical lab. It's not as helpful. An advanced medical kit, however. Let's see. This really just helps you in your checks against things. What I want to see are the actual things that it would be applying. So, maybe under other? Ah, here we go. Other items. Food, drink, lodgings, medicinals. Okay. We're going to go all the way down to tier 4 stuff. And so, we've got tier 4 stimulants. So this adrenaline-filled injection will gives you a burst of energy, allowing you to shrug off the effects of fatigue or exhaustion for a short time, although this surge takes a toll. Tier 1 stimulant lasts for 1d4 rounds, Tier 2s for 2d4, Tier 3 for 4d4, and a Tier 4 for 6d4 rounds, during which time you can ignore all penalties due to being fatigued or exhausted. After it wears off, the condition returns, but if you would have been fatigued, you are instead one step further. You're not exhausted. Of course, it says you can also shrug off exhaustion, so if you were already exhausted, I forget where that takes you. Okay, so we're just going to say Tier 4 stimulant. as far as painkillers go, let's see, that would usually be analgesics. Here we go. So an analgesic deadens sensory input and is used by medical professionals to reduce sensations of pain. If you take or are injected with it, you are flat-footed for 1 round per tier of the medicinal. You also gain a bonus to saving throws against pain effects for 10 minutes per tier of the medicinal. So there we go. That is going to be tier 4 analgesic. And then anti-venom. Do we have that? We have antitoxins. So an antitoxin is a broad-spectrum medicinal designed to weaken all poisons in your system. When you take or injected with it, you gain a bonus equal to 3 plus the medicine's tier to saving throws versus a poison for a number of hours equal to its tier. And since I think they just kind of bundled poisons and venoms together, I guess that's it. So we're just going to say tier 4 antitoxin. And this literally comes with no kind of, it comes with no drawbacks at all. What else do we have, though? I mean, what else do we have that we could maybe add? There's an anti-emetic. It settles your stomach, stopping the symptoms of illness or ameliorating your body's response to the environment. You gain a bonus equal to the medicinal's tier to saving throws to avoid becoming sickened or nauseated for 10 minutes per tier of the medicinal. If you are currently suffering one of these conditions, yeah. We're already kind of immune to that, though, aren't we? Let's see. What was it? Lyman's ear? No. That's immune to off-kilter, which can cause, nausea. But no actual, immunity to nausea in general. So, maybe. Coagulant? No, we've already got that. Bleeding is already capped. Counteractant. This substance boosts your immune system if you are injected or you take it. Hold on a second. There, is that better? No, it's not better. Now it's better. Okay. Let's see. You get a bonus equal to this. It counts as a number of consecutive saving throws for the medicinal's tier. Oh, this is to end afflictions, though. Okay. So we don't really need that. I don't think we need a lot of these things, actually. Vaccine? I don't think we need this. I think we'll leave the Medicaid exactly as it is. So already you've got painkillers, you've got stimulants, and you've got antitoxins. Now the actual Medicaid says it's equipped with various things, but it doesn't say and other things. It just says painkillers, combat stimulants, and antivenoms. So we got those boiled down, we've got them taken care of. Okay. Next is going to be the auto senses. Oh, and the Medicaid is going to be an upgrade. So this will take an upgrade slot. The auto senses, however. So it contains most of his combat systems, which are referred to by one title, autosenses. These include thought-activated comm augers and audio filters, targeting reticules and rangefinders, tactical displays and auspex links, and a host of other features that further enhance their already superhuman senses. So let's break these down. So, comm augers and audio filters. After that, we have targeting reticules and rangefinders. Then we have tactical displays and auspex links. The auspex, of course, is called the Surveyor, Multi-Scanner, or just simply a scanner. Short-ranged Imperial passive and active scanning device used to detect and analyze multiple inputs, including motion, invisible gases, and directed or ambient energy emissions across a wide band of the electromagnetic spectrum. In this case, we're going to be looking at mostly the motion tracking. So when it says tactical displays, I don't know what to do there. And also, why did it have to jump on me? Here we go. However, in auspex, that I can work with. Now, the comm augers. I'm not exactly sure what a comm auger is. Here we go, augers. This is a long-range passive and active sensor like those used in Imperial void ships, often referred to just as augers. Oh, so this is another sensor similar to the auspex then. Yeah, it says they make use of the same sensor technology and detection vectors as the auspex, save with far greater range and power when in active scanning mode. Meaning, I think, it's basically like twice as good as the auspex, but it doesn't have a passive mode. Which makes sense. So, comm augers and audio filters. Still doesn't quite make sense, though. What is a comm auger, then? I don't know. We'll figure it out. Or we won't. I could just go ahead and skip that part of it. Especially since we're also going to have rangefinders in here, targeting reticules. Yeah, I think we can skip this. So that's going to go away. Audio filters. Since we have lineman's ears, that gives us an advantage on saves versus deafened. This is simply going to make us immune to deafened. Targeting reticles. This is, of course, just going to be a plus to hit. So this is going to be a... Ooh, how do we want to do this? So we already know that the, their ability to actually hit things isn't really that much higher than any other normal person. So the targeting reticle will have to be a pretty decent bonus. I think what we'll end up doing is I'm just going to go ahead and say, if we look at a soldier, if we come over here and look at soldiers, their base attack bonus maxes out at about 20. If we go back and look at somebody else, like a mechanic, who is not necessarily combat-oriented, his maxes out at, say, 15. You don't get multiple attacks in Starfinder. But that's why you get better weapons in Starfinder. So a targeting reticle is probably going to just give, say... I'm going to go ahead and say a plus 15. So, plus 15 to hit. Now, rangefinders. This is actually kind of interesting, because when we look at weapons, it doesn't really matter which weapon you choose. Let's stop here. Here we got some crossbolters, some cannons. All of these have range increments. And so the way the range works is, generally speaking, you take penalties as you go beyond your ranges. So targeting, armor class, weapon types, basic melee, range. So yeah, this is the range increment of the weapon. And I don't know what the range penalty is. Let's see. Increment. Doesn't actually say what the range increment is. So I'll have to figure out what the penalty is for range increment. But you can fire beyond it. It's just less effective the further out you try and shoot. So rangefinders, I'm just going to say it's going to be +1 range increment. And the Auspex, this one's actually really easy because we've already seen it before. We go into armor and powered armor, and we come down to, was it this one? I think it was this one. Yes. Blind sight vibration within 120 feet. And so with the Auspex, this will, of course, give us blind sight. And it doesn't even have to be vibration. It's just going to be blind sight. And I'm just going to borrow it from the other one. I'm going to say blind sight 120 feet. So they can see in basically all directions. And that's what the auto senses will do for them. And this, of course, will be one upgrade slot. So, now that we've got that done, we've already established that we've got 2 weapon slots, one in each arm. We're already using 2 upgrade slots. We still want to have room for people to upgrade their armor the way they want. And when we look at armor upgrades, that's the level slots. Most of your armor upgrades are 1 or 2. In fact, I don't even think I see a 3. Yeah, I don't even see a 3. So I'm going to go ahead and say that these are going to take up 2. I'm going to allow 2 more, so we'll go ahead and just say 4 upgrade slots. And that brings us to bulk. How much does this thing weigh? Or is it how much it carries? I forget. I want to say it's how much it weighs, but I could be wrong on that. Powered armor, rules on powered armor. Here we go. So, damage, size, capacity, usage, weapon slots, bulk. Okay. Power armor's listed as bulk refers to its bulk when it is picked up or carried as cargo and does not count towards your own carrying capacity. Okay, yeah, it is its weight. That's what I thought. So, this should be really easy, I think. Let's do a quick little search. How much does Mark 10 armor weigh? All right. So this is just a quick little Reddit thread. Says the weight of power armor. Just started reading the Jagati Khan Warhawk of whatever that is, where there's a conversation who says a single suit of power armor weighs several tons. It says it's important to remember that the suits are powered; they carry their own weight. Plus add to the wearer's strength. It's only mentioned that Marines can barely move or not move at all with a loss of power or being locked in place. Let's see, what else do we got? Can we find any kind of numbers here? Looking for numbers. Let's see. Under the Codex Angels of Darkness, it says individual plates can be up to 1 inch thick and have a special honeycomb design. On its own, a suit of power armor weighs over 250 pounds. Looking at a picture of a Marine, 250 seems like a small number of pounds, and that's why I included the part about most of the armor plates being less than 1 inch thick and being honeycombed instead of being solid. This one says the Deathwatch RPG talks says that it weighs about 380 kilograms, with a Marine himself being about 120 kilograms. However, in an edit, it says the Deathwatch Core rulebook says that while wearing power armor, a Marine weighs between 500 to 1,000 kilograms, or about 1,100 to 2,200 pounds. Alright, so if that's the case, then the power armor isn't nearly as heavy as I thought it would be. Alright, so I don't know how much our Astartes is going to weigh, but if we go by these numbers, if a fully kitted out Space Marine weighed about 1 ton in the power armor, and even a large creature would weigh, I don't know, maybe 300 pounds? We're still talking about the armor weighing about 1 ton. Okay, so if let's go ahead and just do that to make this easy. If the armor weighs about 1 ton, okay? If the armor weighs about 1 ton, then we can come back here and say, how much bulk does it weigh? Well, we've already done that math. Up here, we said that a Space Marine outside of the armor can lift about 1 ton, which makes sense. That means that a Space Marine is capable of moving his own suit of armor. Barely. Which means that when we did the math, when we divided it by 6, it came out to being like 333, I think. Yeah, that was 2,000 pounds divided by 6. Yeah, it came out to 333. So, if we wanted to put the bulk down here, the bulk for this thing is going to end up being 333. That is 1 ton of armor. That's a lot of armor. That's more than basically any normal person could ever hope to move, which is why when you see Space Marines being armored, it's always done in pieces. Like, there's no normal human who could actually do that. But there we go. That is a suit of armor. And it's a pretty good suit of armor. So if you had really good dexterity, so you had like an 18 in dexterity, that would leave you with 14 AC, plus the extra 28 you get from wearing the armor. Yeah, you're good. It's good stuff. That means that you'll basically be impossible to hurt. Pretty easy to hit, to be honest, but pretty much impossible to hurt. And even if it does manage to burrow through your armor, the damage reduction will basically render you immune. Add in the Medicae, add in the autosexes, and you have one scary soldier. Super scary soldier. Not really good at a whole lot of other things, though, but a super scary soldier. When it comes to combat, the rest of the party won't even really need to do anything. It's just that out of combat, the rest of the party will probably need to do everything. Let's be honest. But okay, we didn't make a bolter today, but we did make the armor. We also had story time, so that was fun too. But that is enough for today, I think. We've been here for 2.5 hours. And what do we have to show for it? A little grid. But maybe it's not about the grid that we got in the end. Maybe it's the grids we made along the way. I don't know. We'll find out next time. So, next week, we will start off with finishing off the bolter. Maybe we'll do a template if we really need to. I don't know. I don't see anybody necessarily becoming an Astartes. It'll probably just be something you start as. But we'll finish up the bolter. We'll maybe do a couple of other things Astartes related, but we'll finish up everything Astartes next week. And then maybe we can start on... Actually, you know what? Let's finish up the humans. We'll finish up with the bolter, and then we'll start on the Adeptus Mechanicus. Oh, my boys! My Martians! We're going red. Alright, so that's what we have to look forward to. So if you want to be there for the AdMech, oh, it's going to be so much fun. I'm going to overpower them so much. It's not even going to be on purpose. It's just going to be, I can't help myself. But if you want to be here for the AdMech, then subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell icon. That way you get notified. And Tuxedo says, party? Maybe. You're probably not going to like the way Mechanicus party. Just saying. So subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon, that way you get notified when these videos come out. If you know somebody else who is also into tabletop games, if they're also into Warhammer, and you think they might enjoy this, then share this video with them. Otherwise though, if you're just having fun here with me, leave a like on the video, leave a comment down below, come join us on the Discord, and I will see you next week for more Warhammer 40k stuff. And until then, take care.